Um, so it was fun. It was fun. It was very much Guardians. It was exactly what you want to get out of those movies and those characters. They did a great job. So, um, I think sometimes when you're trying to like hit the same like tone, or like you don't want to do the same movie twice, but you want to get that same feeling, they did a good job of like not being stale or boring, but still like being fun. And Peter Quill's hilarious. All of them are great. So Drax and stuff too. So
welcome back to the Movie Dads podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
That's Kyle.
That's me.
That's it. So we are the Movie Dads, and this is the Movie Dads podcast. We are on episode number 5. Big premiere. Movie.
5. There can only be 5.
There we are.
It's too early.
You can rank your top 5 Movie Dads podcast episodes as of today.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Big premiere movie of the week. So we're doing a new movie this week because we do a new movie every other week. This week we're doing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And then we'll be back next week with an older movie. So as we get going in the podcast, right, things are evolving. We're changing the format ever so slightly as each episode comes and goes, right? We've decided we're only going to do one movie a show. We don't want these episodes to take too long. The Evil Dead Rise episode was nearly 2 hours, and we're like,
we talk a lot.
We talk a lot.
You talk a lot. I don't talk a lot. You do all the time.
We both talk. I talk a lot. You talk slow. How about that? I don't take offense to it. It's, I talk fast. So every episode we're going to do one movie, and the episodes in between our new movies, we're going to do a couple different things, right? We've done like a nerd nostalgia throwback movie. We've done I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen That a couple times. And we're going to introduce next week a new segment we're going to call You Have to See This Movie. And it's going to be a movie that we both find extraordinary in one or multiple ways that maybe isn't viewed the greatest in some cases.
Or
in some cases it will be.
Or it's probably just been a long time since someone's seen it. This kind of popped up because we were talking about our I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen It episodes, which are great, and Howie and I have those all the time. But there are so many movies that we have both seen that we both love that we're like, I want to talk about that movie. So
yeah, it's hard too for us to do I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen It every other week, right? Because we're eventually going to run out of movies. I would think.
You've seen every movie ever.
You've seen a lot, not all. And I think we can evolve that too into a segment where maybe it's something I haven't seen in 25 years, and it's something that you see a lot. You're like, oh, I love this movie. I remember it all the time. And I'm like, man, I remember when that first came out, but I don't remember anything about that movie. So
I feel like I already have one lined up for you.
We kind of talked about it yesterday. One of them. So we'll go into that in a future episode. But this week, we're going to do Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So those of you that haven't heard the podcast before, or those of you that have, when we do a new movie, we do talk about it spoiler-free to start. And then we kind of give you a spoiler warning. And then we talk about some of the content that was featured in the movie. So if you want to skip over that and get to the There Can Be Only 5 segment afterwards, you're more than welcome to until you've seen that new movie. So that's completely understandable, but we want to give you the opportunity to skip that part of the review if you haven't seen the movie yet or don't want to know anything about it.
It's the polite thing to do.
So. It's absolutely the courteous thing to do. Now, when we talk about a movie that's 30 years old, like Under Siege or The Rock, you were talking about The Rock and you're like, this is kind of spoilery. And it's like, that movie's older than a lot of people we know. So it's okay.
I will say my mom texted me about The Rock, like 9 different messages after listening to the episode. My mom listens apparently. So she was so happy that we talked about The Rock. It was great. I love it.
Excellent. It's a great movie. I do feel like we need to share some very important news before we start off the podcast. Kyle, I listened to us this week on Apple Podcasts.
We've made it.
So we're finally
out here.
We're finally on Apple. So that gives us a great chance to say, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, like, leave a comment. If you're listening to us,
comment.
Absolutely. If you're listening to us on a podcast audio site such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, leave a like, subscribe, and give us a share. If you're enjoying the content, if you're enjoying the show, share it with the people you know. Word of mouth is going to help us out if you like the content. Also, you can find us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Movie Dads Pod.
Every time we release an episode, I usually will get people texting me like throughout their listen of like their thoughts on stuff. And guys, I love that. Please do that, but comment that helps us. So
yeah, absolutely. And if there's things you like, and we've talked about this before, there's people that that have similar interests that don't know us, like us, like, hey, this buddy of mine's got this podcast. You should check it out because I think it's the kind of stuff you'd like to listen to.
Yeah.
Help us out there too.
Let's go.
All right. So we're movie dads. So we always kind of give a little nugget or two about our movie kids. So I'm going to lead in with something we're both involved with. It's dance recital weekend.
Let's go.
So those of you that don't know, both our sons, Des and Grayson, are in dance together.
My wife's going to kill me for that dance move.
No. And your wife is their dance instructor. So
yes, my wife is a dance teacher.
Yeah.
Recital weekend is a big deal. So I go and just stand behind the stage and help move props. But other than that, it's an important week. I am excited because last year Des did not dance at the same studio as Grayson. And so this is their first year that they're going to get to do that together, which I think will be helpful because Grayson last year had a mental breakdown right before going on stage because he got super nervous. And I had to snap him here and said, listen, if you don't go on that stage right now, you're never playing Halo again. And then he
snapped out of
went out and crushed it. Went out there, threw his jacket off, did his thing. It was great. So
absolutely. So yeah, it's a big dance weekend for those two boys. Little superhero involvement with dance. Little Superman coming out. So that'll be fun to see. And we can always share more about that after the performance. So we can just, we can critique it and say how well they did. Because I'm sure it's going to be, it's going to be killer. They're going to do great.
Yeah. I still call turns spins, and my wife wants to kill me. So it's dance lingo for those dancers listening.
Not me.
None.
Not for me.
Yes. My kid news was we went to see Guardians of the Galaxy yesterday. And usually we've been doing these as just Howie and I and his brother-in-law. And Howie gets this great idea of let's bring the kids because they will love the movie too, / they'll kill us if we don't. And so
that was more, it was more of that.
Yeah. So we brought the kids, and somebody in this group brought the whole fam, and with the mindset that someone could run the kids to the bathroom so we didn't miss anything.
Oh no,
I ended up going to the bathroom 16 times with these kids yesterday. So Howie might actually have to loop me in on 3 or 4 scenes that I missed.
I'm going to tell you something about this. That I didn't know that was going to happen. Before I go into a movie with Des, I look at him and I say, you're going to pee now, and then you're going to pee when the movie's over. You will not pee during the movie. And he understands. And the last few Marvel movies I've taken him to, there have been no bathroom breaks.
Well,
don't blame me.
I could tell you the carpet in the building. I could tell you every single movie poster on the wall because we were in the IMAX and it's at the very end. They literally don't have a bathroom anywhere near
at the end of the hallway.
You have to walk. I kid you not, 100 yards to get to the closest bathroom. So, and of course we walk out, they sprint down to the bathroom and sprint back. So I get halfway there and then have to turn around.
Did I see Grayson had to use the bathroom before the opening credits had really even started? Like he was
like right after it started. Like we went right after the movie started. So, and don't try to play like this was just my kid. Both kids went on every bathroom break. Just
well,
so
yeah,
you know.
my kid saw an opportunity and he took it.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's move forward because I'm still spiteful. It was a Marvel movie, though. You guys know I'm a DC nerd, so for me, I'm like, I'll take the 30-second bathroom break 14 times. All right, let's jump into my most excited segment of these episodes, our 6 to midnight. These are the things that get us excited this week, what we're looking forward to, any news that may have come out. We're just a couple days late, but may the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars week for most of us Star Wars nerds. And so I'm just going to jump right into my 6 to midnight, and then you can jump in with yours after. But in honor of Star Wars week, I have talked a lot about the new Star Wars video game, Jedi Survivor, which I have not beaten yet, but I am still playing through it. I love it. It's awesome. But something in the game, not to get too spoilery with it, actually led into some other things in terms of things that I'm excited about. We talked about the Acolyte, and I think I've been back and forth on it for like 3 different episodes on if I'm excited for it or not. But the time period that the Acolyte is in is something that back in 2021, basically Disney and Lucas or Star Wars, they did like this new initiative called the High Republic. Basically, the High Republic is set in a time frame that is, they basically call it's like the height of the Jedi, like at their biggest and best time period. It's set 200 years before Phantom Menace, and it's set a couple of 100 years after the Old Republic time frame. So if you ever played the PC game, the Old Republic, it's after the Old Republic, before the Phantom Menace. So basically, like, it's more of like a classical, like Jedi have like kind of their classic robes, but a little bit more like fancy. Like there's a lot more gold, like trim, and they're a lot more opened, you know. In the more kind of modern Jedi, you think like you're not allowed to have any loves and you're not allowed to, you know, have any attachments and things like that. The High Republic is a little bit different. They're more kind of open-minded. I don't want to say hippie kind of mindset, but a little bit more lovey-dovey. But there are basically the largest amount of Jedi there has ever been. They are spread all through the galaxy. And it's just kind of this cool time period of like what I think the like original trilogy, what we all kind of thought was going to happen after Return of the Jedi, that like Luke would go and find these Jedi, start the Jedi Order again, and then they'd have this like awakening. The High Republic is basically the time frame where all that was a thing. So I mention it because in Jedi Survivor, you go to the planet Jeddah, which is also in the movie Rogue One. If you've ever seen Rogue One, on Jeddah, that's the planet where they're mining kyber crystals, which is what you get lightsabers from. But there's giant like Jedi statues, like massive building-sized Jedi statues kind of crashed all over the planet. Well, Jeddah shows up in Jedi Survivor, the video game, and you find out that it's like it was a really important planet for the Jedi and for the Force in general, Force users. It was like one of the most like popular planets. It had a whole bunch of different Force user sects that live on that planet. So it was really cool to kind of explore that. The High Republic is actually talked about a lot and brought up in the game. There may or may not be a main character that has something to do with the story that is from the High Republic era. So it was cool to see kind of that A New Hope time frame talk about the High Republic and how they're kind of folding it into kind of the current modern Star Wars stuff. So I also thought the Acolyte was going to be the first any type of media that's not book or comic on the High Republic, but actually there's a new show on Disney Plus. I don't know if you've been watching it, probably not, but because it's aimed at preschoolers, and so my 3-year-old actually loves it. But it's called the Young Jedi Adventures. It's basically like these 3 or 4, I think it's 3 little Jedi Padawans, and there's one kind of Han Solo type girl. And it's actually set in the High Republic, so it's like following these like little Padawans as they become Jedi in the High Republic era. So
nice.
Super excited about that. Honestly, when they originally talked about the High Republic, I was not excited about it. I just thought it was kind of weird. I didn't understand why they like what they were trying to do. Almost felt like, okay, you're just trying to tap into some, extra money streams for your Star Wars worlds. But now that they've slowly started to fold it into other things, I'm actually starting to get excited for it. So as we get these new shows, and I believe there's actually going to be a High Republic show itself that's also going to come out at some point too. I'm excited for it. So for Star Wars, and this week, that was kind of where my head's been at. That's where I've been kind of living for the last couple of days. So, but yeah, that's my 6 to midnight.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a lot of good information. Obviously, May the 4th. I saw James Gunn actually posted, he created Guardians of the Galaxy as a Marvel space opera is because he was such a Star Wars fan. So that's kind of why he released the movie on May 4th. So I thought that was kind of neat too, tied into that for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yeah. So my 6 to midnight for this week, it was a little bit of a slow movie news week. We had the Dune 2 trailer came out, which I thought was really nice. Yeah, it looks amazing. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. Yeah. But I had a kind of a bonus like movie recommendation. So I went and saw SISU, which is a Finnish movie from Finland, and it's a World War II one-man army kind of movie. Ties right into what we were talking about last week. Basically, it's this old war veteran. It's the end of World War II. Like all the Nazis are leaving Finland, and they're like scorched earth. They're just burning down towns, like on their way out. They're like killing people and burning down towns. This guy's like an old war veteran, and he's basically just living on the land, and he's like mining for gold, and he comes across a ton of gold. And you see all this in the trailer. I'm not being spoilery because it is a new movie. Basically, it leads into he's this like old war veteran that was like a one-man killing machine. He crosses paths with a bunch of Nazis, and he just goes mad and just kills everybody. Yeah, it's insane. Highly recommend. This guy's great in this role. Like he doesn't talk. It's just intense, violent. It's excessively violent.
Excessively. Oh, he doesn't talk the whole movie.
Nope.
I love that.
Nope.
I don't know why when I saw like the trailers for it or like clips for it, for whatever reason, even though it has nothing to do with this movie or this like area, it just reminded me of the movie Nobody. Like I got the vibes of like, that reminds me of Nobody. Because like a movie I won't hear about.
It's this like old kind of it's this old guy, right? Like he's an older guy. So it's written and directed by I don't want to butcher names, but Jalmari Hellender. And the main probably the main actor is Jorma Tomila. I'm sure I butchered that because I didn't say it in the right accent. But it's the same actor or the same writer and director that did Rare Exports. Did you ever see Rare Exports? Which is like about they find like Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus, like encased in ice, and it's kind of a horror movie. Did you ever see that?
No, I have
It's
not.
wild. I've seen that. It's a wild movie. And the dad in that movie, because it's got a bunch of kids in it, the dad in that movie is actually the guy that's the main character in Sisu. But cool. So if you're into action movies, if you're into war movies, if you like watching a bunch of Nazis get slaughtered, I recommend it. It's a cool movie. So that was my 6 to midnight for this week, and I had it all planned out, but we were like literally on our way to go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 last night, and we got a little bit of breaking news. And you sent it to me before I saw it, but then I started getting like news updates right after you sent it to me. Carl Urban, who's been mentioned multiple times on this podcast as a
nerd,
super nerd,
Mount
favorite,
Rushmore,
right?
maybe?
Well, me close, is in talks to be Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 2. And we've talked
Let's
about that
go.
movie, and we talked about the possible casting of it. And here comes out of left field, 50-year-old certified badass Carl Urban as Johnny Cage.
Once he did the others, or not the others, the boys, like, I'm totally like, yeah, I could see him doing Johnny Cage and being great.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board. It's most of the first movie was not famous actors.
Yeah.
And Carl Urban being brought in for the
Is
second one is for sure pretty close to a lister, if you ask me. So I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for that. That'll be cool. But that's
I think
that's my six to midnight for this week. So I was excited to see SISU and recommend it to as many people as I possibly can because it's a badass movie.
Love that. I still have to watch it myself, and I will be watching that. So,
but that takes us into our big premiere movie of the week, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Mm-hmm. Spoiler free. Thoughts on the film first, and we'll give you a spoiler warning. And then if you want to skip ahead, you can go to the good stuff when we get to our top 5. My initial thoughts on the movie, the first thing I want to say is we took our boys, right? Des is 6, Grayson 7, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I probably would have reconsidered if I'd had known it was a little darker than I thought it was going to be. The first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy, listen, there's dark parts. Like I have no problem showing Des any Marvel MCU movie. He's seen them all. He likes most of them. He loves Rocket Raccoon. That's why he was really excited to go see this. That's why he wanted to go so much. I don't take him to every Marvel movie when it's in theaters. But he likes Rocket a lot. He wanted to go see it. He was Rocket for Halloween a couple years ago. It was a little bit deeper, sad. There's some sadness to it. I don't know. I don't want to get into spoilers, but there was stuff that I thought was pretty heavy for 6-year-olds. So as a parent, I don't regret taking him, but I know emotionally he had some hard times with some of the parts, right? So that was that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. That's where Grayson is too.
Yeah,
that's exactly how to explain it.
Going into the movie, though, I was excited to see how they wrapped it up. It was made very clear ahead of time. This was kind of going to be it. We knew James Gunn was done with Guardians of the Galaxy. We knew most of the actors were done with Guardians of the Galaxy. Dave Bautista made it very clear he's done with Drax. Zoe Saldana made it very clear she's done with Gamora. Really not a lot from the others, that was kind of obviously Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper. There's voice acting. I'm sure if they were, it's a lot easier for them to come back and do stuff because it's in a studio in front of a mic like this, right? They don't do the mocap or anything like that. But we really didn't hear from the other actors on kind of what their thoughts were on it. I thought overall the story was great. I liked it. It was very family oriented. The storyline moved at a great pace. It was very clear cut goals that they were moving towards. They wrapped it up with a nice bow. I liked the ending. I kind of got the almost the Lord of the Rings kind of ending, the Return of the King ending. Like it was a long kind of, here's where we're going. We're saying goodbye kind of deal. Yeah. So I thought that was very well done. It was funny. Lots of different emotions in it. I think the tone was in line with the first 2 movies, very much so. The comedy's great. The characters are the same. It definitely takes them to new places. The bad guy was horrible. Like he was, I haven't seen that actor in anything I can think of before, but the High Evolutionary was a great Marvel villain, I thought, in this movie. Because that's a lot of the beef the MCU gets is how throwaway the villains are. Sometimes they get in these like really famous A-list actors to be these villains, and then they're one and done, and they don't do a great job, or it's the content, right? Yeah. So those are my initial thoughts on the movie. I would recommend to go see it. especially if you're an MCU Marvel fan. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy, don't miss it. It's in line with the first two quality wise.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. What do you think?
I thought it was fun. I had Guardians is very different to me than kind of the rest of the MCU in terms of like superhero movies, which I've seen all of them, most of them. I think the newest Ant-Man is the only one I haven't seen. I thought it was a blast. It very much reminded me more of like the first one. For whatever reason, I got more Guardians of the Galaxy 1 vibes, and I enjoyed that. I agree there was some tones I didn't think that was going to go in that direction, but I like that whenever they bring in some emotion and sadness and grief and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. It was super funny. There were two characters particularly that I think for me like won the entire movie that were just awesome. I'll save that for our spoiler section, but ton of fun. Would recommend seeing it. I would say go see it in theater. It's a movie you should see in theater. They were very kind of all over the galaxy, which is awesome. I think some movies they really can get stuck in the same place, but they really did a good job of going to some like super cool places. And one of the areas they end up going is like the most unique setting and space station I think I've ever seen. So it was fun. It was fun. It was very much Guardians. It was exactly what you want to get out of those movies and those characters. They did a great job. So I think sometimes when you're trying to like hit the same like tone, or like you don't want to do the same movie twice, but you want to get that same feeling, they did a good job of like not being stale or boring, but still like being fun. And Peter Quill's hilarious, and all of them are great. So Drax and stuff too. So I liked it. I thought it was great. I would recommend go see.
Good. Absolutely. So here is your spoiler warning.
Leave the room.
Turn it off.
Get out.
Well, fast forward to the next segment now, if you don't want the spoilers.
Now.
All right, Kyle, give us your spoilery thoughts on the movie.
Man, there was so many funny parts in this movie. One, Peter Quill drops the F-bomb, like when she's fucking
first ever MCU F-bomb, and it was perfection.
It was so well timed that Nebula's like struggling to get in like a 1980 car, and she can't figure out the button on the door, which is so. It was funny because we've all been there of like, why the fuck isn't this door opening? Like, and he's getting the fucking car. Like that was just, it was funny.
She's like pushing the keyhole, and he's like, you're pushing the keyhole. He's like, push the button under the handle. And she's like, okay, I did it. Now what? And he's like, open the fucking door.
Open the fucking door. It's great. So that was funny. Honestly, Nebula and Drax, they were the two best characters in the movie. Nebula, I think, as a bad guy in the original movies or the first couple movies, like she is a really good bad guy, and you don't like her and you don't want to like her, which is what you're supposed to do. And now that she's been a good guy, she's hilarious. She's just like super annoyed with everybody, but she loves everybody, but she's annoyed by everybody. Like she was hilarious. Drax, Dave Bautista is just fucking hilarious. He's so funny. Perfectly, like his comedic timing is great, specifically because of like his character is such like an oblivious dum-dum, but he very much like knows what he's doing. He's very heartfelt, and just I liked it. I really enjoyed it. It did get obviously super dark. Like, your son was excited to see Rocket Raccoon, and it was like some serious dark scenes with him and how he got created. And
Rocket drives the whole plot of the movie. Rocket gets hurt at the very beginning, and basically they have to find a way to save him, which involves basically finding an override to his mechanical parts. Like he has like a fail safe in his heart. They have to find a way to get past it to save his life, which is basically the plot of the movie. And it really delves, in the backstory part. I thought it was dark. I mean, listen, the tone of Guardians of the Galaxy overall it's very campy. It's very funny. It's, it's the way the characters are written. It's great. But yeah, that backstory is dark. He's in the cage. It's all these, mechanically, genetically modified animals. And it's, they all end up dying, and it's tragic. And then,
it was like, even the like, because they're all like these Frankenstein animals that have been like surgically added arms or wheels for legs or spider legs and like a robot mouth for a bunny. So like, it just visually, it was very like, not body horror. I don't think that's
I think that's right. Body like, horror is right.
So like, when they first showed up, like they give them like these friendly, like animal, like Bambi animal voices.
Yeah.
But they look like these terrifying Frankenstein monsters. I immediately was like, oh my God, this is going to give Grayson nightmares. I specifically had a moment in the movie where like, it's a really sad part of the movie. And obviously we're in spoilers, so that means you've seen it. But like, the part where basically Rocket is dying or about to die, and he thinks he's going to die. He finds his friends like in that void, but as he's heading to the light or to heaven. And the otter, it was a moment that was super heavy and emotional, but I like had the thought as we were all seeing on screen, it was literally a freaking like humanoid raccoon hugging a otter with robot arms that were stitched. And like, I just had a thought of like, how is this? I'm literally watching a raccoon hug an otter with robot arms and having like a deep emotional feeling of like, oh my God, he's going to die. Like, it was a really like good emotional scene.
It was.
But like, visually, it was just like, how do they do that? How do they get me so wrapped up into such a weird thing?
Well, they do a great job too, because you think about, like, if you're into MCU like I am, Rocket is a very cynical and, kind of angry character, right? Yeah, he was in the first couple movies. Then in Infinity War, he loses the entire Guardians of the Galaxy other than Nebula. They're the only ones left. And obviously they're not close. He hasn't been with her near as long as the others, but they're all gone. They all got dusted. So he spends 5 years without him, basically on his own, kind of, but working in conjunction with the Avengers. You see that kind of at the beginning of Endgame.
Yeah.
Then they all come back and they're together, right? So he has this, there's all this emotion with this raccoon that's really, really well written, really well played out by Bradley Cooper. And then you find out this horrible, tragic backstory.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you missed this part, because I think it was one of the 19 times you were in the bathroom. But he walks in, like, at the end, they save all these kids on the ship, and he walks in and he finds a cage full of baby raccoons. Did you see this part?
No, that was the moment that I was out of.
So he finds this cage of baby raccoons, and he opens it up, and there's a identification plate on the inside of the cage. It says they're North American Earth raccoons, and it's bare in real big letters. It says raccoon. And so he goes to save them all, and he runs out, and there's the High Evolutionary, right? And he's like, zaps Rocket, and he basically turns the tide on him. He turns on his gravity boots, and because he keeps calling him by his serial number name. And Rocket, like, I think you missed this, and he pulls out his gun, and he goes, and he just names Rocket Raccoon, and he blasts the dude in the chest. And it's just, it was badass, and it's like, that was everything. So emotional and great for this CGI raccoon we're all like rooting for.
Yes. Which amazing. we love Bradley Cooper, I think, just for many different reasons in movies. And so, like, I don't think he's had a chance to really shine in these movies. Like, he's just been even Groot, I felt like got to shine a little bit this movie. Like it felt more like Vin Diesel was a part of it. I've never really felt like in any of the things with Groot that, like, I mean, obviously he says the same line in every movie, but doesn't really feel like Vin Diesel. But maybe they had him do the CG this time. Like maybe he did a mocap suit because like the size kind of matched more Vin Diesel. Like I could hear his voice a little bit more, and then obviously he says a line that's not "I am Groot" for the first time, so that was good too. But how about Nathan Fillion in this movie?
Yes, yeah,
he was funny.
He's hilarious. That dude's hilarious in everything he's in.
So funny. It's so, but like also, I talked about this in my non-spoiler part. That setting, they're like on a space station, giant spaceport, space station, space lab.
Yeah.
That is built, it literally looks like a giant human organ, like floating in space.
Yeah.
Or maybe like inside your body. But like the whole space station is basically built of not human tissue, but like living tissue. So all of the buildings, all of their suits look like skin / organs. And that was so ucky to me. It was like, so no matter what in that entire scene or multiple scenes, I was like, this is just like uncomfortable to look at. Like, the suit is like a human, almost like human skin.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like the Michelin Man in human skin. It was just like,
it looked like
so
it almost
weird.
looked like a Cenobite from Hellraiser, like with the when they had the helmet part on and it without the black leather and blades, but just very odd.
Yeah, it was such a but I did think it was really cool because that was very original. Have not seen something like that in a movie before, a setting like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. But
the set design was, I thought, amazing. I mean, we start the movie out on Nowhere, which we've seen Nowhere before because Nowhere is where the collector's at in the first movie. I don't know if anybody watched the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, but it kind of ties into that with that the Krillin's there, Cosmo the space dog ties into all that and how they've kind of living on this colony now. And the set design there is awesome. Then there's like the high evolutionary ship, which is very futuristic and modern and technological, except for the part where the animals are kept, right? It's very prison dungeon.
Yeah, what the
nasty.
hell?
Yeah, it's dark and it's gross. And then there's the space station you're talking about, completely different set design, very bright colors, really cool designs. Then there's the counter Earth planet, which is totally different. It's like there's so many different settings. They're all completely different. It's really cool how they did all that too.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I like, obviously when you have and when you add the snap to like the universe, you can bring characters that have died back and things like that. And obviously that's how we got Gamora back. But I like that they didn't just lean into like, okay, Gamora's back and now Peter and her are together and everything's
100%.
great. That they were like, nope, she doesn't know him. She doesn't remember him. And they have some moments where it's like, oh, I can see why we used to be a thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we're going to be a thing. Like,
right.
I like that. So
I thought they nailed that. Like, I thought that was done. You didn't know going into this movie who lived or died, what kind of relationships that was going to be like with Gamora. She's a Ravager now. And obviously the movie starts off, Peter's having a very tough time not being with her. Like, and it's one of those, like, I lost her. She came back, but it's not the same person. And I feel like she's there, but I can't get to her because she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, and he's having a real hard time dealing with that. That was great. The way it ended was great with her. She goes back to being a Ravager. She, basically says to Peter, I bet we were fun. Like, she basically finally acknowledges at the end, I can see where this could have been, but it's not who I am and it's not who I'm going to be. And he kind of comes to terms with that too. And I thought the writing there was great. The endings they gave everybody was great. What did you think of all that with the characters and how they kind of tied it up at the end?
When they were saying that Peter was going to go back home, I thought like, I like, obviously we just talked about the Gamora stuff, so I thought that was good that they actually like wrapped that up, talked about it, addressed it, and that was for me kind of like the most emotional kind of connection to the movie of like, oh yeah, I'm really feeling this, and I like this sadness and hurt you're putting me in.
Mm-hmm.
But like him going back home, um, at first I thought like, oh, that you're gonna quit the Guardians just because you want to go home. So like at first I didn't think much of it, but then when they show the scene of him going home and seeing like his grandpa, like
Mm-hmm.
that scene for whatever reason really hit me of like seeing a family member that thought they lost you and getting to
Mm-hmm.
see them one more time. It was just like,
And he knew who he was right away.
exactly. And that was like, I wanted to cry during that part. So I liked that. I like that Nebula is like going to be like the leader of the city of nowhere. Like, I think that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I the one thing about Guardians that's always kind of set it apart is the music and the soundtrack. They've really embraced.
Yep.
Like the first movie, it was very like 70s, I think, kind of vibes, or yeah, 70s. So, which I loved the first movie soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
So great. They actually brought some of that back for this, which I think was like a perfect way to wrap it up.
But a lot of 90s too in this one, which I thought was cool.
So yeah, so they showed like the playlist, and then you kind of it like all clicked for me. Like maybe I didn't pick it up in the last movies, but like the playlists are literally just like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and it's like they'd slowly been kind of moving more modern. And like the dog days are over, like at the end, like when they all just started like doing like a dance thing. I just thought that was great. It was super fun. It was super like we just had a lot of dark things happen. We saved a lot of people, but also like things are not going to be the same. The Guardians are essentially the Guardians that we know are no more. So I thought that was a cool way. It was fun. It was like Drax was super sad because his girlfriend was leaving. But then you could see like he knew that that's what needed to happen. I felt like that's kind of how all the characters were. They were like, you know, we love each other. We don't want to leave. We don't want to break up, but we all need this. So like, let's just accept it. And I thought that was great. It's great writing. It's very original. It's the Marvel that I like. I like the Guardians. I'm like James Gunn. I like space opera stuff. So I like that that's very Star Wars-y vibes. I like that they're hitting every corner of the galaxy. I thought it was a great movie. I thought they wrapped it up great. The villain was cool. It was very unique. It was
really good. Yeah.
It was really unique. I fucking loved. They drop a RoboCop, like they make fun of the bad guy because at one point in the movie his face gets messed up by Rocket Raccoon, and then in the future you see him, his face looks fine, but he's very much like a Star Trek stretchy face. He looks exactly like RoboCop does without the top helmet. And like in my head, as I first saw that, I thought like, oh, he looks like freaking RoboCop. And then when Peter Quill like just quips that in there, like, you RoboCop stretch face looking, I died. I was laughing so hard. My son had no idea what the fuck was wrong with me, but I thought that was one of the best one lines in there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
It was. I had one big beef with the movie. I love how they tied everything up. I love the villain. I love the characters. I like where they sent everybody at the end. Rocket's the new leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, new members. I had a problem with Adam Warlock. Like, he was wasted as a character. He's so important to Marvel Comics as like he's the guy that is the main opposition to Thanos in the Infinity Saga in the comic books. Like, he's the main, like, he has a soul stone in his forehead, you know, in the comics. And here he's basically a mindless Superman.
He's like a dumb
he's an
child.
Idiot. Yes, it's exactly what it was.
Child.
And Will Poulter's a good actor. I don't, you know, if you've ever seen like Maze Runner, he's done a bunch of movies. Like, and obviously he got very chiseled and ripped for this because
he got massive.
Yeah, you don't expect that from Will Poulter, but I read reviews ahead of time and had said like he's such a he said he does such a bad job. He didn't do a bad job. That was a bad character.
Yeah.
I'm
for what the character is supposed to be.
Yes. Should have been somebody
totally
else.
Agree.
They could have had somebody else, like they could have had that be a different character and be the dummy, Superman that kind of he drives part of the plot because he's supposed to kidnap Rocket for the High Evolutionary. But man, it shouldn't have been Adam Warlock. That just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't like how it was.
I think they've kind of made. I feel like Captain Marvel for this world has been that kind of character, like that, like cosmic super, like the cosmic. That's the ace up their sleeve, game changer superhero. So, but I agree. I do like the actor, and I like what he. I liked him in the movie.
Yes,
Adam Warlock totally could have been different.
Right. It's too important.
All I could think about, though, anytime I see him, I think of that movie with Jennifer Aniston and is it Paul Rudd?
Oh, no, it's Jason Sudeikis. We're the Millers.
Sudeikis. Yes, where
you guys are getting paid.
Yes, that was. That was the first thing I thought was, you guys are getting paid, like so freaking hilarious. And I just like, geez, he got freaking huge because when he was saying you guys got paid, he was like 130 pounds. So. But yeah, I liked it. My ranking would be, I feel like I just live in this world, but maybe it's because we're choosing movies that are at this level. But I would say it was an 8. I liked it a lot. I give it an 8 because I don't think there's much in it that I could say that they missed or should add that would have bumped it up or would have bumped it lower. Like, it was a good movie. It was a lot of fun. It was an 8 for a movie theater movie. So I haven't really said that much in this, but it's a movie you should see in the movie theater. When you see it at home, it'll still be a good movie, but it just, the special effects and stuff just make it that much cooler.
And seeing in the IMAX, IMAX really, it turns everything up sound and quality wise. I'm with you. I feel like I'm in the same boat. Like, I've given out a lot of 8s, but it's an 8. This is an 8 out of 10. It's in line with the other Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I mean, I know you said you didn't like the second one as much. At the same time, I probably agree, because I think the original was a better movie than the second one. But the second one, to me, is not bad at all. I think, like I said, I think they're all on a very close line. I would probably put this closer to the first one, though, than I would the second one. Quality.
That is exactly how I would.
But at the same time, like, if you took, there's 30, I don't know how, there's 30 MCU movies now, 30 or 31, something like that. I think all 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies are in the top half of that list, and MCU is notorious for putting out quality movies. Like, whether it's not your cup of tea or not, they're good movies. They cast well. I mean, what Kevin Feige's done with Marvel is nothing short of tremendous. And the quality movies is been pretty much consistent until recently. This is definitely the best MCU movie since
the Avengers.
It might be since Endgame came out. Well, I know.
Did Black Panther come out after?
Other than Spider-Man. Other than the Spider-Man movies, because Far From Home and No Way Home both came out after Endgame. But I mean, Eternals, Wakanda Forever, the new Ant-Man, Shang-Chi was pretty good. But yeah, there's,
you thought Thor was good?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good movie. It wasn't on the par with like Iron Man or Captain America or anything like that. The new Thor I didn't think was very good. The second Doctor Strange was good, but again, this is probably the best one since Endgame, other than something that had other than Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies. So 8 out of 10 from both of us. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Go see it in the theater at least once, maybe multiple times. If you can catch it, a second time, if you're into it, I wouldn't fault you for that. I think it's a great movie.
I just switched my top 5 list right now, as I do on here. I usually add 1 or 2 as we talk. I'm like, oh, forgot about that, or that needs to be in there.
Speaking of which, is it time?
It is time.
There can be only 5.
Only 5. All right. Some of you, this is your favorite segment. This is my favorite segment.
I think it's my favorite segment too, and it is the segment I get the positive feedback about. I also get negative feedback about it too. But
yeah, I mean, because obviously my lists are like, they're what I like, and what I like is usually not what everybody else likes.
We've talked about my brother-in-law Tony before, because he kind of goes to the movies with me all the time. He's like, I can't listen to your rankings; they make me mad.
That's the whole point. We're trying to invoke reaction. Well, strong reaction.
Like 6 to midnight, we're talking about movie news and the things that get us excited, and we kind of talk about it, right? And then we give our thoughts on a movie that we both watched, right? This is the one where we kind of debate, and it is the most creative segment because it drives creativity. We don't know what each other has on their list beforehand, and this week we got some big ones.
Yeah, we're going to be way off. This is actually also usually where I get the most texts from people where they're like, oh my God, I forgot about that movie, or yes, I agree. I'm actually surprised about the amount of agrees that I've had, but also a lot of like, you totally forgot this, or that is not in the top 5. So let's jump in. I'll go first because we just talked Marvel. Let's do a palate cleanser. We'll come back to Marvel maybe. But let's, for the sake of May the 4th be with you, let's do There Can Only Be 5. Our top 5 Star Wars movies of all time. I know. You already all think you know what the top 5 are.
How similar are these lists going to be? Because the next category is going to be a lot different. I think this one's going to be close.
I think this will be close. I think we'll probably have 4 out of 5, maybe even 5 out of 5, but maybe in a different order. And this was a hard list.
It's hard to rank. I feel like the top 5 was easy for me to get to, and then I had to figure out what order I wanted to put them in.
Yeah, yes. And I also I'm such a loyalist to Star Wars. Shout out Darth Vader back there. I don't want to leave anyone out, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, because I'm a big believer that the prequels were good. I like the prequels. They're some of my favorite movies. You're obviously going to hear my list, so you're going to know what's what. But
I think the prequels have aged well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And so has Hayden Christensen. Meow. Just kidding. I'm glad they brought him back for the Kenobi. Did you see the Kenobi and Hayden Christensen reunion that they did behind
where
the scenes?
And they had the playing behind them, like the clips? Yeah.
It's great.
It is
great. So anyways, okay, let's do this.
It's a big one.
My number 5 Star Wars movie of all time. Number 5, Star Wars Rogue One. What a movie. It's rare that you get a sequel, prequel, a movie that's based off of older original movies that makes those older original movies better. The ending of Rogue One, that fucking Darth Vader scene is the most badass Darth Vader 15 seconds in the history of Star Wars. When his lightsaber turns on, it felt like a horror movie. He starts fucking dudes up. It was like all of the stuff that you thought Darth Vader could and would be, and then you finally got to see it, and it was so cool. He's just slowly Michael Myers buttering through these dudes, and then you see them handing the plans out. I thought that was fucking awesome. Loved the story. Honestly, Andor and I forget the name of the girl as the main character, but the movie itself, the story in the middle, I don't really care, but the movie itself and what it did, and that end scene, the war on that tropical planet is awesome. Anyways, I'm going way too much into detail. Rogue One, my number 5. Number 4, This movie gave us the best Sith of all time ever. Episode 1, Phantom Menace, my number 4 movie of all time.
Wow.
Darth Maul is literally the coolest Sith ever. I wanted his action figures as a kid. All of my favorite action figures were of him. He is just that movie. He makes that movie great. That battle at the end is incredible.
Duel of the Fates.
That music is just like when that hits, it hits. I still listen to Duel of the Fates. Also, there was a clip that just recently came out. I think of Dave Filoni talking about the Duel of the Fates and like what that scene means, and that like it's the duel of the fate of this boy Anakin,
yes.
and if Qui-Gon lives, he'll be his, he'll be the father that he needs to be basically the savior of the Force. But if he loses, then it's all lost, and that's what happens. So I just love that. Like it made that movie so much cooler. So that's my number 4.
I want to say I'm happy you have this on your list, because I feel like Phantom Menace, out of all the Star Wars movies, is the one that gets the most crap that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we had the original trilogy, then we had this, and it was, fans liked it, but there was so much critique to it.
Yes.
There's the movie's got problems, right? Like you and I've talked about Jake Lloyd. He was terrible as young Anakin, acting wise. It was not good.
And Jar
Jar was a big problem. But we got Ewan McGregor's young Obi-Wan, which is awesome. Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon was awesome.
Please bring him back. Bring him back for something.
And the biggest travesty that came out of that movie was we got Darth Maul once, and that was it. We got him once.
Which they smartened up and brought him back for the series, and he was in the Han Solo movie.
He was.
And at some point he'll be in another live action at some point here soon.
Has to happen.
Which is great, but like I agree, because he gets chopped in half, so he comes back with robot legs, and I want original Darth Maul. I wish he didn't die. I agree. I wish they would have kept him, because he could have been like the main villain or the main like hand of the Emperor for all 3 of the original episodes, and I would have been happy. So
yeah.
Okay. Number 3. Now we're getting into some classics. My number 3 greatest Star Wars movie of all time, Return of the Jedi. Great movie. Way to finish up that early trilogy. Just freaking love that movie. I love Luke Skywalker like in all black as a Jedi with a green lightsaber. I thought that was cool. The ending is very dramatic. Obviously, he turns Darth Vader, and like the prophecy comes true. Darth Vader destroys the Sith, throws Sidious over the pipe. It's great. Here's where I run into where I had the biggest like struggle of my top 5 of who should be where. And I think I landed where most Star Wars fans would. So number 4 or number 2. I'm sorry, where did I write 4? My number 2 greatest Star Wars movie of all time, A New Hope, the original Star Wars. I probably put that one on more than any other Star Wars movie, but that's more because I'm like, I'm going to watch the Star Wars movies again, and then like I'll put that on. And so it's kind of the same thing as like the Fellowship of the Ring. I take that back. I watched the Two Towers probably the most.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's the Battle of Helm's Deep
is pretty epic. Yeah, you're right.
Amazing.
Yeah. I feel like I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah, everyone's number 1 I think is the same. So time out.
It's that movie right there.
Yes, it is. My number 1, The Force Awakens.
The Last Jedi.
Yeah, The Last Jedi. Absolutely not. Those movies have no business being in this top. I will say The Force Awakens was not I enjoyed that one, but the rest of them made that one bad. My number 1 Star Wars movie of all time, Empire Strikes Back. Empire is the best Star Wars movie ever made. The Battle of Hoth is fucking dope. That iconic freaking snow speeder tying up the AT-AT's legs or the AT-AT, depending on who you are. Fucking, you get Dagobah.
I always said AT-AT as a kid. That was
I did too. I said AT-AT as well. You get Dagobah in there. You get Luke training, but then you get that iconic finding out that Luke is the son of Darth Vader, and then he goes, no, and that's impossible, and then he falls down the hall.
It's such a dark ending to a movie.
It's almost feels like the bad guys win, and we've talked about this. The bad guys are always my favorite. Darth Maul was my favorite. Obviously, I love Darth Vader. He is one of my favorites. Like Thanos in the Avengers movies.
We have a lot.
Infinity.
We have a lot in common there. With it's villains. Like villains drive it.
Villains are just so fucking cool.
I took drama in college. Right. I always wanted to get into movies and stuff. It was always something I always wanted to do. And I always said, if I ever get a chance to be in a movie, I have to be a bad guy. No matter what.
That's all. I always played the bad guy, whether it was with my action figures or like with our friends, like whoever was going to be the villain. Me, I'm the bad guy. I'm Darth Maul. So, so Empire gives that vibe. It was very like Infinity War. Thanos wins at the end. That's why we all think that's the best out of the MCU. Just such a great movie. Obviously, I just said I put The New Hope on a lot, but Empire is also like just under that in the amount of times that we put that on. So my kid loves it. Grayson loves the Battle of Hoth. He thinks that's super cool. But yeah, Empire, number one. And I think most Star Wars fans will have that at the top of their list. I have an inkling someone else I know will have that there. So why don't you tell me your top 5 Star Wars movies of all time?
So we had 3 movies, not 4. So there's 2 I have that are not on your list.
If you say Solo, I am walking out of this room. Oh, God.
Number 5. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's knock my whole setup over.
Number 5, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my honorable mention.
Out of the prequel movies, like I think Phantom Menace gets a bad rap, I think, but it did have a lot of problems. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith made up for Attack of the Clones, because I think Attack of the Clones is not very good. That's my opinion on that movie. I did not enjoy it near as much as the other 2 in the prequel trilogy. I think Hayden Christensen had a lot to do with that. You and I have talked about Count Dooku before. He was Christopher Lee's a badass. I'm not going to talk about Christopher Lee. It's not him. But you went from Darth Maul to Christopher Lee, Count Dooku. And the
only reason why Count Dooku is better now is because of the Jedi stories that they came out with like last year that dive into him and make him a lot better. But yes.
The best part I think of Attack of the Clones was like the Yoda fight scene, where he's bouncing all around.
The whole theater busted out into like clapping and like cheers when he started flipping everywhere in that.
Yeah. It was pretty. That was awesome. But anyway, Revenge of the Sith, I think, corrected a lot of that. We knew, but it's crazy because you know where the story ends. You know for a fact, and it does such a great job of taking you on the journey to get there. Like don't get me wrong, it has problems. Like Padme dies, lost the will to live. Whatever. It's got problems. Hello there. There's so many iconic things that come out of that movie. General Grievous was a cool villain. The fight scene at the end on Mustafar is just perfection.
Fucking awesome.
Perfection.
So fucking cool. Anakin, I have the high ground.
Right.
Don't try it.
There's so much that happens in that movie, and they do such a great job of tying it up. It's number 5. Number 4, don't get mad. I had The Force Awakens at number 4.
Oh, okay. I'm not mad about it. I said in there that was the only one out of the new ones that I thought was good, but the other ones ruined it.
And you and I have talked about this. The Force Awakens started us on a path with a new trilogy that looked so promising.
Yes.
I liked Daisy Ridley. I liked the character. I didn't mind Kylo Ren. I thought he was a decent enough villain. I liked the supporting characters. I'm a big fan of Oscar Isaac. I really thought everything was great. Captain Phasma I thought was cool. I liked a lot about that movie. I think Han Solo dying was done really well. I didn't have a problem with it because of the way it happened. Everybody knew Han Solo wanted to die in Return of the Jedi. Yeah. I mean, he made that clear. So everything that happened in that movie, I mean, and it copies a lot of A New Hope's story, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got, you could give a very basic 2-sentence synopsis of both movies and they're going to look very identical, right? Like it's very similar. I thought they did a very good job making that movie. The problems happened after that movie was made because we didn't have one person writing a 3-movie long story. And so it evolved into something that just didn't work out. I'm going to say this, and don't worry, no, I don't have any other of the new trilogy on my list, so don't freak out. The Last Jedi obviously has a lot of issues, and it pissed a lot of people off, a lot of Star Wars fans off. Right. I'm going to say this, and you have to let me explain before you blow a gasket. It's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's a bad story arc for a lot of characters. Yes. And it screwed a lot of things up. The movie's well done. I have, like, when they talked about Rian Johnson still possibly doing a trilogy, I would have no issue with that as long as he doesn't touch any legacy characters, because he's a talented writer and he's a talented director, and he does tell good stories. That movie ruined everybody's favorite Jedi.
Yes.
And we've talked we've sent clips to each other and things like that. That's the issue with that movie. That's not who Luke Skywalker was.
That's not who he was.
No.
And there's a long clip video of Mark Hamill and all of the interviews.
Yes,
there's like 55 interviews of him talking about how he's like, this is not who the character is. He's the greatest.
And Mark Hamill is very political when he does those comments. Like he's not saying like, it's garbage. I hate it. It's terrible. He's like, this is the problem I have. And he's dead on, because nobody understands that character more than Mark Hamill does, other than George Lucas, right? So that's where that is. Now, Last Skywalker, it's a bad movie. I'm not even, the story's stupid. It was terrible execution.
Yeah, it was.
Don't get me started.
I actually agree with you. The Force Awakens, and I kind of just had said it when I joked about that being in my top 5, but in the world, like when that movie came out and before any of those other sequels came out, it was awesome. It went back to the practical effects. It felt very much like the original.
Yes.
Obviously, because the story arc was very similar, but like practical effects, practical scenes and settings. It brought back kind of that wonder and magic from like the original Star Wars. And so the same. I loved it. I thought Poe Dameron was going to be great.
Yep.
I did like the swerve in that the trailers. They made you think that Finn was going to be like a stormtrooper turned Jedi. Yeah. And then you find out that wasn't the case. But I
liked his character too. I thought that was neat. It kind of gave some backstory substance to stormtroopers, right? Like that was cool.
So we were going to get, and Captain Phasma looked so cool. She's rocking armor from the Naboo flight ship. Like they did such a good job of setting it up.
Yep.
And they just like, they
dropped the ball so bad.
Yes. So don't take my comments earlier. I think the newest trilogy are not good because of exactly what you said. They didn't have a storyline, but The Force Awakens in its own world by itself, not including the other stuff before they fuck up Luke Skywalker. Because even in that movie, they did a good job of having Luke in it without having him in it, which also Mark Hamill was kind of annoyed about. Mm-hmm. But like having him as like the seminal important character, because that's where we left off. He was very important. Like the Return of the Jedi happened. He was supposed to go off and start the Jedi Order again. We all know kind of the legend story for the most part that he sort of did that. And they took some of the legends and threw it in there with like Kylo Ren, Ben Kenobi, or Ben Solo. Mm-hmm. I liked Kylo Ren too. Mm-hmm. I thought, me with a bad guy with a cool fucking helmet, keep your fucking helmet on. They could have just kept him looking, because he looks very much like Darth Revan, which I think is what they were going for. Mm-hmm. But man, they took his helmet off and they just ruined it. They made him a crybaby, whiny baby.
Well, he
could have been so cool.
In the first movie, he's got it on most of the movie. Like he's mostly in it, and I think that was great. And to your point, like Captain Phasma had that helmet on the whole time, and like we know who's in that. We know who's in that outfit. Why in the second one did we get his helmet?
Rian Johnson went out of his way in the second movie to like have a scene where he is throwing away the helmet and destroying it. Like they purposely put that in there. It's like, you guys created such a cool character. That opening scene where he comes in with the stormtroopers and he fucking catches that blaster bolt and is just holding it there as he's like doing his thing. Fuck yeah. Give me that Kylo Ren all day. Yeah. Anyways,
the fight scene in the woods at the end. Yeah, I knew that's what was going to happen.
Awesome.
Yeah,
the whole thing awesome
where she's taking the lightsaber, like, she's using the Force and it flies past him, and the whole thing's great. It's great.
Cool.
Which is kind of going to lead me into my next one. Number 3, I have Rogue One, and for all the things that you said, you hit the nail on the head. I don't need to go into any more detail on Rogue One, but it's a great movie. The end scene, the whole story. Again, we know how the story ends pretty much. Like, we know what's going to happen. It's how do we get there? The thing that I thought, Force Awakens came out, then the next year Rogue One came out, and these were the first movies that came out after Disney acquired Lucasfilm. And it was like, holy crap, they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then after those 2 movies came out, what the hell are they doing? Right. And so now we've got good TV programming, because we've got different people running the television side of Lucas for Disney than we do the movie side. And that's where the disconnect comes in. I know there's a lot of people that want like Kathleen Kennedy's head on a platter. And I mean, almost rightfully so. We definitely there needs to be somebody there not interfering, and let somebody tell a cohesive story, right? That's what we need to see. So Rogue One's number 3. Number 2 is A New Hope. It's the original. It's the classic. I'm with you. Like
we had that in the same spot. Yes.
Oh yeah, the top 2 are the same. Spoiler alert. I kind of knew that's how it was going to go, because it's the way it should go. New Hope's number 2. I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to watch all of them. I put it in. But my favorite is by far Empire Strikes Back. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. Ever made. It's fantastic in so many ways. It has a great ending. The battle on Hoth at the beginning is fantastic. We meet so many new characters. It is probably one of, if not the greatest science fiction movie of all time. And it's so well done, and it's a classic, and it should win. It will be remembered. Our grandkids will watch it, and great grandkids will probably watch Empire. It's one of those movies that it will stand the test of time. It's from the 70s, and it's still watched regularly in multiple households across the country, right? Like, it's one of those things.
Think about the things that happened to Mark Hamill, like in his real life, with that like motorcycle accident,
that car crash or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That ended up causing, yeah, you're right. It was a car crash. They ended up having to add scenes in it to basically explain why his face looked different and it was scarred.
And but like facial reconstruction.
Yeah, those things in the movie like made the movie, like those were cooler parts of the movie, like obviously they changed in the what are the editions they called in the 90s? They came out with new ones of it.
The special editions.
Yeah, and they added some stuff to it. So, which in some cases I think was great. In some cases we don't need it, but
yeah. But that was one of those things. That was something that George Lucas did, right? Like that was his decision to do. And as him being George Lucas, he's the creator, he's the writer, he's those are his.
Yeah, it's like this is what I would have done if I could have.
Yeah, he has the right to do that. If that's what he wants to do. Sure. Go ahead.
For sure. Yeah. Nice. Okay, love that. So we had the same top two.
Yeah. I thought we would. I thought we both would have Rogue One in the list. I wasn't sure if you would have Revenge of the Sith or not. That was the one I kind of wondered.
I have it written at the top, my honorable mention, Revenge of the Sith, because I really loved that movie. For whatever reason, like I think I was a senior in high school when that came out. Maybe I was like a sophomore or something. But I liked that movie a lot. It is one of my favorite. I skip over the Clone Wars all the time. Not because I don't think the Clone Wars is actually a bad movie. I actually like Padawan Anakin a lot in that movie. And like I mentioned earlier, Count Dooku I like a lot more. So, and there's that scene on Coruscant where like he's skydiving through the city. I always thought that was cool as a kid. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, look at that. Yeah. Top 5 Star Wars. That's going to be
that's a big list.
Arguments everywhere. So
it's a big list. And I don't think we really had any arguments with it. I think we just had a lot of discussion around what they did and why certain movies deserve to not be on this list.
I thought for sure you were going to have Solo in there.
No, I like Solo, but no, it's not in the top 5. I mean, this is one of those things like there's not a lot of movies to pick from, right? Like you have a very, there's 10, 11, something like that. Total movies to pick from to make a top 5 list. So basically you're saying these are the top half of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
If you look at it, I would say there's tiers, right? Like I think Empire and New Hope are tier 1. Okay. Yep. Tier 2 is a different order of a series of 3 or 4 movies, right?
Yep.
And then
Return
tier 3,
of the Jedi.
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith.
Rogue
One. They're all in that next tier. Then there's a third tier, which is probably like Solo. Phantom Menace is probably in that one, and it's
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones, and then there's those last
Bottom
2.
Of the barrel.
There's those last 2 movies, and again, Last Jedi's not a bad movie. It's just it does so much wrong.
It's a bad Star Wars movie because
it
didn't feel like they knew the characters, and that was we were all like, "What? We want to see Luke Skywalker," and you gave us this angry old hermit. Like
I remember when I would keep going on this topic, but I think it's a good topic. But I remember when I saw that movie when it came out in the theaters, and it got over, and I was like, "That was a really good movie. I really liked it," and I had to think about it and let it gestate. And I was like, I don't like what they did I don't like what they did there. I don't like the way it made me feel afterwards.
Yeah.
Watching
that's
it.
Actually really great. For me, like, I think while watching it, the second that he grabs the lightsaber and he just, I was like, what?
What's he doing?
He wouldn't do that.
Why would he
quit?
And
that was when the hamster wheel started turning. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
So anyways, okay, let's jump to our next one.
Yeah. So the next one is my top 5 list. So we're doing 2 big ones this week. So we did top 5 Star Wars movies. We're going to do top 5 Marvel movies. Okay. This isn't comic book movies of all time. This is movies based on Marvel comics, right? So it's not MCU either, because I wanted Kyle to be able to put in other movies, because I can see Kyle right now, top 5 MCU, like, bleh, bleh. No, I'm just kidding. But I wanted, there's a lot of good Marvel comic book movies that aren't directly in the MCU. Just, obviously the MCU changed a lot of things. Probably, Sony did Spider-Man movies. Fox did Deadpool, X-Men properties. There's other stuff out there, right? If you want to throw in the Hulk, it was Universal. No. anyway, so there's different studio movies out there, but obviously MCU's, the Disney owned Marvel Studios is the
there's 30 of them, and they've come out in the last 14 years. So
it's exactly right. It's crazy, and they do a good job of making money. So here's my list. Top 5 Marvel movies of all time. Number 5, Spider-Man 2. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2. And I'm sure you have this on your list, and it's probably in a different spot. That's fair. Number 4 and number 5, I knew right away what my top 3 were going to be. And a lot of it had to do with like the way they made me feel when I watched them. And we this kind of went back. Remember when we talked about scariest movies? It was the way I felt connected to the movie when I watched it. And so 4 and 5, I had a bunch of different movies I kept putting in these spots, but Spider-Man 2 is a classic. The original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, it's the best one by far. I like the original Spider-Man. I did not like Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 2 was a fantastic movie. Tobey Maguire he's having all these like mental crisis, and like he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus is fantastic. James Franco in that movie is great. With the like wants to get revenge on Spider-Man, and then he finds out who Spider-Man is, and the whole story's it's a great story. It's very well done. Spider-Man 2. Number 4, this is probably the biggest surprise I'm going to have on my list, is X-Men Days of Future Past. I loved that movie.
Great, awesome movie.
I was a big fan of the original X-Men trilogy. Again, like we had it's kind of like Spider-Man. Like we had a very good original X-Men. X2 X-Men United was like way better, and it was a fantastic movie. And then they made a third movie that was like, Last Stand was, it's tough. Both those instances are going to tie in with what I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Both those instances, we had a very lackluster ending to classic trilogy. And you're just like, oh, that's how we're going to end this? Days of Future Past retconned some of that, right? Yeah. Because it tied in the X-Men First Class new members with the old Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's the main character in that movie. Time travels, has to go back in time to, stop things from happening. It's a great story. It's based on a great series of comics. And it's so well done. It's a fantastic movie.
Perfect way for them to bring the best Wolverine into the newer X-Men. Yes,
it was. And the way they brought everybody, like we got Halle Berry back as Storm. We got Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier. Then at the end, we even get, Cyclops and Jean Grey are there. And we have, doesn't Kelsey Grammer's like Beast even show up at the very end? Like in it ties, it brings all that back and like kind of makes it so it didn't happen. And I thought that was really, really well done. It's a great movie. Number 3, I have Avengers Endgame. As an MCU fan, it ties everything up. When Infinity War came out and it had that, and everybody dies at the end, right? Like half the Marvel universe is dead. Thanos wins. Holy cow, what's going to happen? Listen, I know I only have a year till I figure out like when the next movie comes out, because they did this as a 2-parter. It was very well done. The Russo brothers tied everything up. It's tons of fan service. It's all these characters. It's this epic battle. It's amazing how they did all this. And this Infinity Saga, all these Marvel phases, all these movies. You have Guardians of the Galaxy, had nothing to do with Iron Man and Captain America and all that. And they bring them all together and they created a fantastic movie. Number 2, I had Spider-Man No Way Home. And this was a movie that I went and saw. I had very high expectations. It was like one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood that we were going to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield again, that we knew we were kind of going to get like a Sinister Six. We were going to get villains. We didn't know who all was coming back. Like we knew Alfred Molina was because he was in the trailers. We knew we had a Green Goblin. We weren't 100% sure it was going to be the same Green Goblin.
It was going to be the Green Goblin.
Yeah. We knew Jamie Foxx was back, but we didn't know everything about it. And when it came out and the way they tied it all together, the story's great. The way the three Spider-Men interact with one another is awesome. It's like everything somebody would want. Just like Days of Future Past, it kind of gives you that Tobey Maguire trilogy, like everything's okay. Like that one, that movie, that trilogy was so. And I know you're a big fan of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies, and I think they're underrated. I think they're underrated.
Very much agree.
And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Tobey Maguire's first two movies were excellent, and the first two Amazing Spider-Man movies weren't as good. And I don't think he was. I think he was a great Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield is great. I don't think there's been a bad Spider-Man. I think all three of them have done a very good job. But I really like the way No Way Home brought it all together. They fought together, and then it kind of it changed everything about the MCU Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because he starts out and he's got an Iron Man spider suit, and then he has an Iron Spider suit, and he has all these like extra things, and now we've changed all that. Nobody knows who he is, and he's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like
that was my biggest complaint with the two first Spider-Man movies is I'm like, we're just jumping. I mean, that and the Avenger movies, like we're just jumping to him being Iron Spider and part of the Avengers. Like we didn't even get we didn't get the classic blue and red. I have no money. Like I can't pay my rent, but I just saved that, that was probably one of the coolest things that movie did was at the end, they were like, actually, we were going to do that, but we went a different direction of how we got there.
Which I thought was really original, creative, and
totally original.
Really well done. If that was the plan all along, wow. I mean, hats off. That's cool. I mean, that you got it there eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the Into the Spider-Verse movie really introduced the common public to that there can be multiple Spider-Mans and different Peter Parkers and stuff like that. So
absolutely.
I think that was a big part of why that was so cool.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Then number one, I have Avengers Infinity War. It's my favorite MCU movie. I could watch that movie a million times and I will not get tired of it. Thanos is the top two greatest villains in cinema history are Thanos and Darth Vader. There's no debate, in my opinion. I know people want to debate. Thanos to me is number one. He did all this across the series of movies that he barely shows up in, right? And it's like, that character's there because at the end of the first Avengers, you get that little side grin from him that he was the man pulling the strings the entire time, of all this stuff. Then he shows up in Guardians, and now it's Josh Brolin, and it's like, okay. And then in Infinity War, he starts off with killing Loki at the beginning of the movie,
and beating the fuck out of the Hulk
and Thor. He beats the crap out of both of them, and that's even before the title card comes up, and you're like, holy crap, what is this movie about? And it's got so many of those like cheering moments when Thor gets Stormbreaker and they teleport down to Wakanda, and like he almost single-handedly takes out the army, once he has Stormbreaker because his power is so strong now. And then Thanos shows up, he gets all the Infinity Stones, he kills Gamora, and then he snaps away.
Sad moment.
He snaps away everybody. Like half of them they're gone. And it just ends, I love that movie. Together with Endgame is like one epic movie is fantastic. And I think that really solidified to me how much of an MCU fan I am, is that one.
Infinity War, I look at as like, it almost feels like that was the end of the actual original phases. And then Endgame was like we ended it how like it should have ended, but like now let's bring in Endgame so we can actually like fix things and give it a happy ending.
Well, one of the things that, it seemed very intentional about who got snapped, right? Like who's left. Sure. It's the originals are left, right? Everybody has their story. Like Captain America was a fugitive because of Civil War at that point. And now he has to be something again. He has to be an Avenger. Iron Man's done. By the time you get into Endgame, he's done. He's lost. He's done. You watch Spider-Man turn to dust in his hands.
Oh, what a moment.
Yes.
Great. Talking through all of these movies today, Star Wars and Marvel,
right.
I'm going to put these movies on.
Black Widow is now like she's like the leader almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's the one like keeping tabs on everything.
Yep.
Thor's a mess, after Infinity War. And Hawkeye is murdering people. Like he's going after, because he lost his whole family. So he's just killing every bad guy he can get his hands on as Ronin. And so like Endgame, they left all the originals at the end of Infinity War because in Endgame, they all had to sort their shit out and bring them back. It's pretty much,
Oh yeah, when Tony Stark's like, you said we'd lose together, you weren't there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
God, it was great, awesome. Actually, as we talk about it, I wish this is a list that like, because there's a million movies, it's really hard to get 5.
It is.
Because my nostalgia obviously plays a big role in a lot of my lists. Infinity War is actually my honorable mention. I did not put it in my top 5, but it is. I know it is. That was the one movie that I was going back and forth on. That and Captain America: Winter Soldier. I don't know why. I just thought that was such a fucking cool movie.
It is. It's a good movie.
That Captain America character, like seeing that movie, it brought. I've never been a big Captain America fan. Like he's never been one of my favorite heroes, but like that movie made me go like, I think Captain America might be in my top favorite heroes now. So let me jump into my 5 and just totally. All the Marvel nerds are going to destroy me on this because it's not what you think it is. I did have Captain America: Winter Soldier as my number 5 of all time. But during this podcast, I scratched it out, moved it up to honorable mention because I thought of a movie that I think is a awesome movie. It's super original. It really got people into this world. Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse. I fucking love that movie. My kid loves that movie. We get introduced to Miles Morales. I've never been a big Miles Morales fan. But what are you gonna say? You can't believe I put that in my top 5.
No. It's on a lot of it's on a lot of lists. And like when I looked up top Marvel movies, like those lists are all over the place. There's
all over the place.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's at or near the top of a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was overrated.
Wow. Oh, I walked away.
I liked the animation style. I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was great.
See, I walked away like from that movie. Well, even when like the movie was happening, I was like, holy shit, this is like a comic book. This is like a comic book if it was a movie. So I thought that was really cool. All the animation was awesome. I hated they had Spider-Man in sweatpants for most of it. But anyways, I love that movie. We watch it a million times in our house. I think that is one of the top 5 Marvel movies ever made. My number 4, Black Panther. I loved the Black Panther movie.
It's a good movie. It was one of the ones I had in 5 and 4, and I kept moving it out and moving it in.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's like it does a really good job of getting people interested and excited for a character that I don't think anyone really cared about or had as like a favorite superhero. Like no one's going around being a Black Panther fan, but now everybody is. So
Marvel Studios did a really good job of that, though. I mean, like if you think about what Iron Man was before that movie came out, and we talked about that I think before, he was a B-level Marvel character. And I mean, Black Panther, that movie changed a lot too, and it meant a lot to a lot of people. I mean, it was the first Marvel movie was it the first comic book
I think
movie
it was
ever
first like
nominated
superhero movie nominated
for a Best Picture Academy Award, and
and I think
rightfully so.
I feel like there was a lot of controversy in that there was a big thing that a lot of people thought it should win, and the Academy was like, "There's no way that should even be in the conversation." But to appease the people, we will make it a nomination. But like, I think timing of when it came out didn't help it because it came out like in January or something.
It was a February release, yeah.
Yeah, so
and it's still made. It's still, I think, top 5 superhero movies grossing. It's like $1.5 billion, ton of money.
So freaking good.
See, that's like it's a double-edged sword though. When those movies come out at that time of year, it's like, well, there's always really successful movies in December because January and February are usually there's nothing, right? So a movie can come out and make a bunch of money because it's really good and people want to see it.
Yeah. So I did have that in my top 5. My number 3, Logan. That movie, Logan, is so good. Everybody loves that Wolverine. I love that Wolverine. I love that they took the old man Logan story and made it a movie with him and Patrick Stewart. There's so much emotion. There's so much loss and grief and how to get through it. And I don't know why I'm always talking about those items in this pod, but
no, that's a great movie.
It's so good.
It was another one. It was, like I said, I had a bunch of movies that were like 4 and 5. I kept moving them in and out before I settled on my final couple.
I think this list is one of those that there are a lot of interchangeables. So like, as we were talking through it, I'm like, man, I don't have Infinity War on here. That seems kind of like that needs to be in here. But in Logan, they even brought back like original. They did like a CG version of him as like young Wolverine, which I thought was fucking cool. That just, what a great movie. That's a movie that I probably watch maybe once a year now. Like, I just think it's like a movie that like, oh, I got to watch that again. It's been a while.
Hugh Jackman did such a great job as Wolverine. And there were so many people that were like, when he was cast, they're like, who, because if you grew up in the 90s, he's probably your favorite X-Man, if not your favorite Marvel character, right?
Yes.
Wolverine,
yes.
because he was such a badass. And his casting was such a home run. And it's at some point they're going to cast somebody else as Wolverine because it's too big of a character to not. And he was so great in it, and we're going to get to see him again. In the third Deadpool. I'm interested to see how they do that.
That's going to be so great in that kind of world. I think they're going to do a great job with it. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. Like, and they found a way to use that, the most popular character from all of those movies, and get them in every single version that they've come out with. So, my second movie, continuing on, X-Men X2. I have that as my number 2 greatest Marvel movie ever. That opening scene with Nightcrawler when he's through the White House, like that opening scene immediately made Nightcrawler one of my favorite like characters. He was so cool in that movie. The whole concept of that entire movie was awesome. I really liked those X-Men movies. Number 1, I actually didn't hate number 3 as much as the rest of the world did.
Same. It had problems, but again, it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. And so like just the characters that were in X2, I think were great. That was like peak X-Men for me. So again, like shout out to Nightcrawler, even though Wolverine is obviously the best character in all of them. You get a little bit more deep dive into kind of the Weapon X story, like, which I think is really cool. It's Stryker, and you find out Wolverine is like this crazy. There's, it was a little bit more serious, Phoenix or
it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
So we lose characters, Cyclops dies, all that stuff. So my number 1, you already talked about it. I'm shocked you didn't have this at number 1, and it should, because it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. It is near perfect. Spider-Man 2. with Tobey Maguire, Doc Ock. Like, that movie is near perfection for Spider-Man. They hit on all of the things that in the comic book that Spider-Man goes through, like mental health stuff, struggling with like, I know it's my responsibility to save people, but I also like want to be able to like have the girl that I want, and I want to be able to like live and pay for my apartment, but like, my job is to save people. Like, it was so good. Doc Ock was incredible. Great movie.
Alfred Molina, he's a great actor.
He's so good. When they brought him back for the new Spider-Man movie, I was like all on board because of that.
And they did a good job bringing him back too. Like,
yes,
as much as Willem Dafoe stole the show in No Way Home, almost making Doc Ock almost making him like a good guy. Almost, it worked,
well,
right?
I think that's why we like that character, because he's a villain, but you almost feel like he's like an anti-hero. Like, he's not trying to be a bad guy.
In the movie, you understand his motivation, and I think that's something that they do a pretty good job of in a lot of comic book movies. Is the villains, you can understand some of the motivation. I think that was one of the things about Killmonger and Black Panther. Like, he was,
we get it. Like,
like I get his motivation.
Yes, which, by the way, maybe that's why I like Black Panther so much, was because of Killmonger, because he was so fucking badass. But yeah, Spider-Man 2, maybe because the video game was so good that I like that movie even more, because the video game was essentially the exact same as the movie. But so
why isn't X-Men Origins Wolverine on your list?
Because in that movie, Wolverine goes to swipe someone with his claws, and the CG, they literally like come off his hand and then catch back up when he's in the bathroom, if you notice. I am going to give some shout outs that we didn't talk about them, but they should be in somebody's list somewhere, and maybe on a different day I would have had them. The Blade movies, probably one or two. Number two for sure. The Punisher movie. I actually loved the Punisher movie. The one with John Travolta as the bad guy.
Okay.
Love that movie.
Did you ever see Punisher Warzone?
Yes,
with Ray Stevenson.
It's so bad.
It's so hyper violent.
Which
insane.
I think that's crazy. Why people didn't like the one with John Travolta, was because it wasn't as like violent as the Punisher should be.
Thomas Jane as Punisher. He was the Punisher, and I thought he did a good job. I thought it was cool. Yeah.
So Thomas Jane did like a 10-minute fan film of him bringing back the character of the Punisher, where he's just like going basically, I think, to do laundry at like a laundromat, and buys like a bottle of Jack Daniels, and then it turns into like the coolest Punisher. It takes like everything from that Punisher movie that was cool, and then it adds the stuff that you wanted him to be, and does it. It's on YouTube. I'm gonna send it to you. You're gonna fucking love it, because it's a good companion piece to that movie. But and then my last shout out, Captain America from 1993 or 4 or 5 or something. Horrible movie, but man, I loved it. We got Red Skull. You got a lot of that vibe of like, Mother Russia, and it was great, where he kicks the rocket, and you know what movie I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what movie you're talking about.
So bad it's good. Captain America.
I'd have to watch it again to decide if that was so bad it was good. Awesomely bad.
Awesomely bad. Okay, that's our list.
I liked your list. Very different list. Like, we both had Spider-Man 2. I think that was the only one. I liked the movies you had on your list, though. Like I said, Black Panther, X2. Those are all movies that, like, my list, they were right on the outside looking in. Like, they.
Yeah.
Again, I went back to the way I felt about movies. It like kind of solidified it for me. Like, I remember seeing Black Panther, and I was like, man, that's really. I want to see that again. It's really good.
Yeah.
But it didn't have the emotional resonance some of those other ones did, and that's I think where they kind of.
Yeah, I'm sure the Marvel fan base will destroy me for not.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Movies on there, but
no, because I think that's fair. I mean, if you think about if we didn't have movies like X2 or Spider-Man 2, we wouldn't have gotten the MCU. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
We never would have had those movies.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, we have a lot of movies to thank for everything that evolved. We talked about Black Panther being nominated for an Oscar, right? For Best Picture. It never happened before. But the whole reason it was nominated is because they expanded the Best Picture category to up to 10 movies, right? And the reason that they did that was because of a comic book movie. It was because of The Dark Knight. It was the reason that happened.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Shout out.
And that's the reason. So the Dark Knight walked so Black Panther could run. At the Academy Awards. I mean, that's...
Clip that, post it. It's great. So, all right. I think we had a good episode.
Oh, it was good.
We talked about a lot of things. We got to jump into stuff. You got to talk Marvel. I got to talk Star Wars. I feel like we went really heavy with like, these are like the big three or the big top kind of franchises or
those are big lists. Those are big categories. And we went over with the top fives this week. So, but that concludes There Can Be Only Five.
Only five.
It never gets old. That takes us to the end of the episode. Episode number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Go see it. We both gave it out 8 out of 10. Go see it in theaters. IMAX if you can. It's definitely worth the price of admission. That brings us to the end of the episode. Just like always, everybody, thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. Thanks for listening if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, all that stuff. If you are, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We'd love to hear comments, suggestions for There Can Be Only 5 lists. We'd love to see. I don't think we'll ever run out of subjects because we keep thinking of wacky stuff. But that takes us to next week, where we're going to do You Need to See This Movie. Episode 6, the 1997 science fiction classic. What is that?
Let's say the movie.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. That's Rat Check,
oh man,
dog.
I was like, who's that bald person? Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's Rat Check, dog.
Rat Check's up
feature on
next.
the planet. Yeah. Rat Check's up next.
Starship Troopers. Thanks for
Everyone
listening,
fights.
everybody.
No one quits.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you, or you'll hear from us next week.
Bye.